Hey, how's it going, folks? Welcome back here. Welcome back to a Friday. It is the Earthmaster here on this end. About 10:32 a.m. here, California time, March 15th, 2024. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 2.9 around the Indonesia Islands area. We did see some further movement down across the Tonga Trench and the New Zealand area as well. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. I want to cover earthquake activity here across the region of Iceland, looking at about 39 earthquakes here in the last 12 hours. Still seeing some movement here specifically in and around the Grindavik area of Iceland. This has just kind of been an ongoing thing here over the last couple days, watching for some potential eruptive activity in the region. It's just a matter of days, I feel. As far as any latest updated information from the Icelandic Met Office, looks like this was put out today, 3:15. Let's check this out here real quick and see what we got. So, continued increased likelihood of an eruption there across the Grindavik area. Indications that more magma needs to accumulate under the Svartsengi than before to trigger a new magma intrusion and possibly an eruption. So that's a little contradicting, right? If you really think about it, they've been saying for the past couple of weeks that the magma underneath the area has accumulated enough to break through the surface here, and they've been saying the same wording that an eruption is likely in the days ahead. They've been saying that for quite a few weeks now. I think what's going on here, we're going to be looking at a new area of eruptive activity, and I think it's going to be towards the south, towards the Grindavik area, if not directly underneath Grindavik, potentially. That's just the indicators that I'm seeing there as far as earthquake activity in the region. But these guys are stating that more volume needs to be there underneath the region. Let's see, the amount of magma underneath the Svartsengi continues to increase, which could end with a new magma intrusion and possibly an eruption. And they're still stating that the Stora Stagafell region and the Hagafell area northeast of Grindavik would be the most recent area. But GNSS displacements and recent interferograms show continued inflation of the Svartsengi magma reservoir at a similar rate that observed prior to the diking event on the 2nd of March. So where are we at here? Looks like, so this is the new area. The dike intrusion here, I believe, is the region that is going south here, but it looks like we're continuing. We lost a little bit of magma right there around, like they mentioned, the 4th or the 2nd of March, and now we're starting to go back up. That magma went somewhere, right? It just doesn't magically disappear, and I think the area to watch is further south. I think we're going to see an eruptive event south there towards the Grindavik area, if not offshore. So we'll continue to watch that. Here they're stating, now this is kind of interesting right here. Maybe they're trying to keep everyone cool, but I present the facts as I see them. Seismicity northwest of Grindavik is not a sign of a dike intrusion there. Okay. What is it? That's kind of an interesting question there. So, however, let's see here, March 2nd, it is estimated that a much smaller volume was lost from the magma reservoir during this event, which triggered a small dike intrusion that did not result in an eruption. A larger volume compared to the last amount lost from the Svartsengi reservoir on the 2nd of March has now been recharged, yet a new dike intrusion eruption has not yet occurred. This indicates a possible change in the magma plumbing system, just like I'm telling you guys, to the south, and greater uncertainty in the new failure limit that now needs to be reached, and thus the timing of the new dike intrusion and or eruption. When the new limit is reached, the most likely scenario is another dike intrusion within the existing diking area between the Stora Stagafell to Grindavik, which may or may not accumulate in an eruption. So here's where they mention that the earthquake activity around Grindavik is not a sign of a dike intrusion. We cannot rule out that the possibility of an eruption occurring within an adjacent area or volcanic system west of these areas. However, prior to this occurring, a new dike will first need to be intruded in the corresponding area. There is currently no evidence of a dike intrusion within these areas. Such an intrusion in a new area is expected to be characterized by a strong earthquake sequence and large amounts of ground deformation detected. None of these. Are you sure about that? None of these? I'm going to show you guys some GPS stations here in a second. There has been an increase in seismicity to the northwest of Grindavik. It is likely that the continued inflation of the Svartsengi magma reservoir is now triggering small movements on pre-existing faults. So they're stating that this is only faults out here being activated from this earthquake activity. So to see this movement here, now I wish this map would go back here a little bit longer than 24 hours, but this is what we have to deal with here. And this is just the last 24 hours. The last couple days, we've seen increasing activity here, more southward, and then offshore as well, compared to areas up north where they're thinking the eruptive activity is going to take place. Some of these earthquakes here, it almost looks like they removed some, or potentially it's past the 24-hour period. But a lot of these earthquakes here that I looked at last night were relatively shallow in the area. Some deep, some shallow, but I don't see how these could be considered faulting out here. If anything, I think the movement, the intrusion, is finding a new source down here, right? That magma got displaced somewhere. If you think about it, yes, we lost some activity there across the reservoir, but that dike intrusion went somewhere. So let's bring up, how did I do that yesterday? There was a cool little feature here. Let's see, GPS station. There we go. Here it is. So this is a GPS station here, very close to the Grindavik region. Let me blow this up here just a little bit so you guys can see. They're stating that they're not seeing any elevated GPS activity there across Grindavik, but the latest data is right here, March 14th, March 15th time frame, and we're at an all-time high compared to previous levels and previous eruptions. There is a little bit of the decline in a decline in inflation there across Grindavik as well. But we're up. We're still elevated here across this area of Grindavik. And that's just the one station there across the region. Let's see. I wonder if this one's working. This one's offline. This is the one that got ran over by the magma back in January, the eruptive activity then. So it's kind of even this one's still showing some high inflation here. Here's the latest run. I'm not for sure why we lost data here in between these days, but we're still at an all-time high underneath the Grindavik area. I'm still thinking that we could still see the activity strike underneath this area, folks. I follow the earthquake activity. I follow GPS stations here. They can say one thing and then say another, but they're thinking that this is not related to any magma-related activity. I think otherwise, but we'll continue to watch that and see how it plays out. It's possible could just to keep the everyone's nerves calm out there, which I get it, but this data is representative of what's going on underneath the surface here. We didn't see any major earthquake activity up here in this region, so the magma went somewhere, right? They're claiming that there was a dike intrusion there earlier this month and that there wasn't enough volume to break through the surface, but we didn't really see any elevated activity up here. It was mostly down south here. So I think I'm leaning more towards this area, folks. That's just my observation. Take it as you will. These guys up here are the big players, right? In terms of all the equipment that they monitor and whatnot. With the equipment and data that I see, it looks like activity is scooting down towards the south. All right, let's go ahead and move on, see what else we got here for earthquake activity. After all this movement here yesterday, goodness, in the Atlantic, it looks like we did, no new further earthquakes out here. There were 6 decent-sized earthquakes yesterday afternoon within a short time of each other. It doesn't look like it stirred up any further activity up around Iceland. The activity that we're seeing right now in the last 12 hours or so is fairly common for the most part there. But it's in that area around Grindavik that I'm a little bit more concerned. But we'll continue to watch this for some further divergent activity out here, which could be a leading indicator, and leading up here to maybe an eruption around within the Iceland area. So let's look at Yellowstone over here. Looks like the USGS did jump on some of that earthquake activity from yesterday that I was talking about in my update last night. A little earthquake swarm here around the Madison Plateau area. Now that earthquake activity, let me show you guys here on the graph, came in late last night in a big cluster. And where are they stating this is at? So west of Yellowstone Lake, so roughly about here west of Old Faithful. But that picked it up as well. See, the earthquake activity in question is going to be this clutter right here. There was just a bunch of earthquakes in a very short amount of time. That did show up across Purple Mountain. That showed up here across Maple Creek. This is what I look for in terms of verifying the data that I'm seeing out here. If this is legit earthquake activity, it will show up, and it did. A lot of times we'll see unusual activity or a signal on one station and not another. That tells me right there that it's localized or some type of environmental noise around that seismic station. But definitely had some earthquake activity out there, a handful of them. It looks like as we zoom in here, about 14 earthquakes in that little cluster. Nothing big, but it was just a rapid amount of earthquake activity in a short amount of time. You can see these earthquakes here. For example, this 1.2 at 20:35:06. A few seconds later, a 1.5. About a minute later, 1.2. A couple minutes later, 1.4. So definitely, it's interesting little event there in terms of seeing a decent amount of earthquake activity in a short amount of time. Fault related, most likely. Some of these are between about 3 to 9 kilometers below the surface. And that activity looks like, let's see what we got. It's going to be this one. I've never really messed around with this one here. Yeah, okay, here we go. So the activity from yesterday kind of showed up here at the western edge of the caldera. The caldera being here in this black line that runs through Yellowstone Lake as well. But that earthquake activity in the squares. So that it's possible it could just be fault related. Well, here's the depth of these earthquakes down there, almost to about 10 miles or so, 12 miles down below this area. So we'll continue to watch it. But I'm glad the USGS jumped on it. I like to see, the data being updated when they can. Pacific Northwest here. Not a whole lot going on out here across Washington and Oregon. Some further activity in Nevada yesterday. As far as Northern California activity goes, looks like some typical movement out here. Not seeing any average or abnormal activity. Southern California, about the same as well. One little earthquake off the Elsinore fault here. 0.9. Nothing big. A little trail of activity here across the mountain range leading up towards the Salt Lake City area as well in Utah. And oil fields out here in Texas getting hit. Far as the eastern portion of the country goes, looks like we did have a two-pointer around the North Carolina area and also one earthquake in the New Madrid seismic zone. This 2.2 outside the New York area over here, actually in the White House Station, New Jersey area. Seen a 2.2 yesterday afternoon. No further activity to report, though, from that movement. Over here across Hawaii, A couple earthquakes in the last hour or so. No major changes out here. Most of this activity stirring up at the deeper levels there, between 32 and 35 kilometers deep. Newer activity overnight here just off the coast of Japan around the northwestern edge here of the Filipino plate. It's going to be this area right here, close to the East China Sea region. A couple fives stirring up there about 3 or 4 o'clock this morning or so. Nothing major going on across the Kuril-Kamchatka for now. Slight clustering going on here across the Philippines southward. Nothing major going on. We're lacking activity across Papua New Guinea eastward once again. Now, these areas did get hit slightly. Papua New Guinea did have a 6-pointer, and then we had a 4.8 here across the Vanuatu area, but still technically fairly quiet within this zone. Now we're getting some deep earthquake activity back here across the Tonga Trench, with the return of deep activity down here across New Zealand as well. As you can see on the USGS map, there's they're showing 2 earthquakes here, all below 500 kilometers deep here for a couple 4s. And the New Zealand activity, let's go down there and check that out real quick from the GeoNet servers. And there's a 2.6, 27 kilometers deep, but we did have some further activity. We have to go to the all magnitudes to see that. There's a 3.4 about an hour ago, 168 kilometers deep. They've gotten a lot of earthquake activity here underneath the North Island recently. Not big activity, but a lot of deep, and these little 3s and 2s and occasional 4 or so in this area, leading me to believe that there's definitely some activity that should be taking place there across the surface levels here soon. Haven't really seen any major activity. But yeah, a lot of deep activity, some slight small surface adjustment upstream off the North Island coast. And of course, as you get over here, that's associated with the faults here along the Hikurangi subduction zone. So we'll continue to watch that. Across the rest of the globe here, 4.2. Oh, where is that? Let's see where that's at exactly. I miss the old days. When I clicked on a 4.2, it would take me to the event. So it looks like they need to do a little update on the Earthquake 3D globe here. But that 4.2 is over here around the Caspian Sea area. 10 kilometers deep. Looks like underneath that area. Goodness. Some smaller microquake activity here across the Mediterranean and South America area. A couple 4s down here. Looks like 4.8 out in the divergent zone out here between the that's going to be the Nazca Plate and the Antarctica Plate down here. There's a couple divergent zones right here, but the majority of that activity will be pointing towards the South American plate, South America area, where we see that subduction zone at. So we'll continue to watch that with this activity stirring up here recently. Middle America Trench, a lot of this activity from yesterday. I don't think we've seen anything larger or newer there overnight. Doesn't look like it. That 5-pointer coming in off the coast of El Salvador from yesterday. And we'll just kind of watch it, folks, and see how the Friday wants to play out. Space weather activity, getting a little proton event. That was due to a massive eruption there on the western limb that I showed you guys there yesterday. Look at that. A huge eruption took place there directly, facing away from Earth, but we are getting some of the proton events there, as you can see in the polar regions. That is due to that strong explosive event there from, I believe that was from 3599. That was the sunspot that had been facing us for quite a while. It started getting rapidly complex as it went over here off the western limb and produced that decent explosion there. Massive CME. Again, that will not be Earth directed. As far as activity, wanting to see if we have any signs of our former sunspot coming around yet, 3590. I don't see it. It will be here soon, though. In a couple days, we'll get a better look at it once it crests around the eastern limb. Right now, we're left with a whole lot of nothingness here on the Earth-facing side of the sun. Very quiet conditions out here. 75% chance for a C flare, M flare at 10, X flare around 5. Not for sure why. There's really no sunspots out here that harbor that type of potential, at least on the Earth-facing side here, as you can see. All right, let's see if they've updated this far side watch. This is still from yesterday. Now, here's a newer one. Here is 3590. That is the old sunspot that produced quite a few X flares here a couple weeks back now, a few weeks back, somewhere around there. That will be cresting over here, as I mentioned, on the eastern limb pretty soon. We'll get a better look at it. We may see some signs of it tonight, maybe tomorrow morning, but we'll definitely keep checking on that, see if it's going to provide us with any more flaring. But that's a decent, goodness, that was just a decent flare. Again, not Earth-directed. Not a whole lot here in the Aurora forecast for now either. All right, Storm Prediction Center, a little bit different day today compared to yesterday. We've seen quite a few tornadoes out there yesterday across the area. Let me show you guys the storm reports here from yesterday. There was there's a lot more tornadoes listed here on the map. This all came in after my update last night. Last night there was only about 4 on here, but as you can see, quite a few more tornado reports, and I'm sure you guys have seen some of the damage being reported out there around Ohio. Very unfortunate event. It's that time of year, right? Obviously, have to be prepared and just do the best you can to make sure that you and your family can survive a potential tornado out there, because these events here, they kind of warned this area, forecasted this area for tornado potential. There was definitely a lot of media report on it. So, it's unfortunate that there was quite a bit of damage out there, and unfortunately some fatalities as well. But yeah, quite a few tornado reports, big time hail. I've seen reports of 4-inch diameter hail. That was localized to one area. I can't remember exactly where that was at, but 4-inch hail. That is crazy to think about. But as you can see, there's so many reports of hail coming in. A different story today, though, folks, as we can see. Make sure I got the most recent update here. There we go. Tornado potential down here across Texas and portions of the south and southeast here. Got to keep an eye on that, right? Just because it's a 2%, it's a little bit less than obviously a little bit less than yesterday's potential. It's still got potential here for some tornado activity. So just a heads up. Main threat looks like it's going to be some big time hail. Texas definitely can produce some big time hail. There's a huge hatched area down here, 30% hatched area as well. A lot of population at risk in terms of the severe potential down here today. So if you're out there Friday, right, a lot of people may be getting off work early, getting ready to enjoy their weekend. Watch out. If you admire your vehicle like I do, I would park it somewhere safe today, because there's a risk of some big time severe weather out there. Let's back out and see what we got here going on now across the Texas area. It looks like right now limited. Of course, that frontal boundary is kind of coming down from the north, but this will heat up later this afternoon and produce these storms. Right now we got a little bit of activity outside of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Doesn't look like anything is severe. It hasn't entered into that zone, but throughout the afternoon, early evening, we'll watch for some activity here within these regions here around that green line. That's the marginal risk. All right, numerical models out here. As far as long-term models, I'm just kind of watching the West Coast out here for California. We got some sunshine coming in here with upper 70-degree temperatures. It looks like our next storm coming in will be on the 23rd, or close to there. Maybe on a Friday, it looks like, for that time frame. Not expecting anything big. Maybe a little bit bigger storm behind that. It does look like potential for active weather returns there to finish off March along the West Coast. So, and of course, all these systems, depending on the jet stream position, can venture over across the plains and create severe weather activity. This is a perfect dynamic with cold air, low pressure right here parked in this region, pulling up warm Gulf moisture. This can produce some severe weather. So we got we got a little bit of severe weather to deal with here in the end of March. The best thing I can suggest to anyone out there in that region, if I lived out there, I don't live out there, I live out here in California, but, weather radios, right? It's a big time thing. Most of us have cell phones, and the cell phones send out alerts when there's tornado warnings and when there's, some type of severe weather in your area. Please don't ignore those. Make sure you pay attention to those and, be weather aware of what's going on. I like to use, this is the PC version of Radar Scope, but they have it free on your cell phone as well for Android and Apple. This is an excellent weather program. This is what I use personally, the Radar Scope. I pay for the Pro version here on the computer and also my phone just for enhancement. You can see where the lightning strikes are and whatnot. But for the most part, you'll see and be able to track these storms as you put these things into motion here. They kind of give you these track coordinates, and you can see if maybe a tornado-warned storm is heading off towards the, just for example, Tyler, Texas area. This right here may have a chance to hit it. This is nothing big. This is just a thunderstorm. But just for an example, you can follow these storm tracks. They do give you the potential times there when you click on them. 11:35, 11:50 local time there. No, that's this would be my time because it's 11 o'clock here. So it would be 1 o'clock over there. But it adjusts to your time depending on where you're at. It's really beneficial to watch the weather. A lot of people think that it may not happen to them, but when it does, it's unfortunate. You get knocked off your feet unprepared. So it's best to have some type of backup. Got some more earthquake activity coming into the Yellowstone area. It looks like a couple more added. These look like recent quakes, so we'll watch that. There's no major earthquake activity happening, but it looks like we are getting a little bit of swarming stirring up here on the in the Yellowstone area. All right, folks, stay safe. The big one can happen at any time. I don't know. I just feel like things are really heating up out here in terms of earthquake potential. We've been living in some quiet times out here, right? We built up our cities. We built up our communications. We built up our families, our livelihood. And, without any major earthquake activity out here along the West Coast in quite some time. The Ridgecrest earthquake there a few years back wasn't even on the main plate boundary. That was over here off of the Garlock Fault along the, I think it was the airport or the Little Lake Fault here. But that's a sign of regional stress out here. And even then, that's been a few years since that's happened. But it's just a matter of time, folks, before big potential activity visits us. And got to be prepared for disasters, whether it's tornadoes or earthquakes. Got to make sure you have some type of plan for survival and to limit the potential damages. All right, folks, the member drawing is coming up here. I'm going to shoot for, I got a lot I got to do here in terms of schoolwork before I get a little bit of free time. So I'm going to shoot for 4 o'clock. Normally we'll do it around 2 or so, but I need to do it a little bit later today. So 4 o'clock, we'll do the member drawing live. We'll have a second live stream, and that it'll pop up if you have notifications enabled. If you don't, click that notification bell there on the Earthmaster main page channel, and you'll get notified when we go live. But we got a couple more. I think we added a couple more members overnight. It looks like 7 new members here. Goodness, so welcome aboard there. I was trying to go back and find out. Oh, okay, Kenneth Smith here gifted 5 Earthmaster memberships. So these folks right here were all gifted new memberships. So we'll add those folks there right back into the fishbowl for the drawing that we will hold later this afternoon. Again, 4 o'clock Pacific time. So that's going to be 7 o'clock Eastern time. Not that late over there. Probably going to be late down in New Zealand. Sorry there, Timothy, and the rest of the folks out here. But I got a couple hours of schoolwork I got to catch up on before I can have some free time. We'll catch you guys back out here at 4 o'clock California time for the member drawing on a separate live stream. Take care, folks. Have a good day and stay safe.